Miso thinks she's meeting Yoshik, but when she arrives at the empty amusement park, the lights suddenly switch on all at once, bathing the space in a warm, dreamlike glow, and as she stands there in surprise, Young-joon walks toward her with a quiet smile and explains that he was the one who planned it, asking Yoshik to call her because he thought she might feel uneasy if he had invited her himself. They ride the rides alone, Miso screaming at the top of her lungs while Young-joon sits as calmly as if he's in a board meeting. He even fixes his hair during the pirate ship ride. Finally, Miso admits that she's scared of the rides, and when he asks why she went on them, she tells him, "You asked me to ride it." They sit down to rest, and Young-joon says he's not scared of the rides because fear isn't something he experiences simply by being on a ride. She asks what makes him scared, and he pauses, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face for a moment, before finally answering that it's none of her business. He gets up, and she assumes they're heading to the next ride he had mentioned earlier, but he tells her, "No, we are going to ride whatever you want to ride." Miso has a lot more fun riding the carousel, and Young-joon smiles to himself, touched by the childlike joy lighting up her face. She tries to convince him to join her, but he says he's content just watching her ride it 7 times, almost managing not to sound sarcastic. Miso tells him that she always wanted to ride a carousel, but she only got to watch because the tickets were too expensive with 3 kids in her family. Young-joon smiles again, pleased to hear that he had granted her wish. They take a break for dinner, and Miso notices that the fancy restaurant is empty. Young-joon says casually that he rented the whole place. She asks what's up with him today, and he says that she's worked hard for him for years, but he feels like he's never properly thanked her, so this is his farewell gift. Miso stares out the window thoughtfully at the carousel. She says that she used to live in the apartments that stood here before the amusement park was built, and that her place was near the carousel. Young-joon quips that he was probably by the haunted house or the bathrooms, then adds, "Just kidding." She guesses that she was about 5 when they tore down the apartments to build the park, so Young-joon would have been 9. He says that even at 9, he was skilled and succeeded at everything, but that 4th grade was a bad time for him. When Miso giggles that 9-year-olds are in 2nd grade, Young-joon tells her that he had skipped 2 grades. He says he was unhappy because he was in the same class as his brother, and Hyung's friends would pick on him. But instead of sticking up for him, his brother made things even worse. He sighs, he's garbage, then quickly changes the subject. He takes Miso on a boat ride on the Ha River, where she sighs, "This is really cold." Young-joon agrees, but Miso insists that these moments are when the man should take care of the woman, like lending her his coat. He just asks, who cares about gender roles when it's this cold? Suddenly the sky lights up with fireworks, and Miso thinks there must be a special event somewhere. Young-joon tells her proudly that he arranged them as part of her farewell gift. Miso watches the fireworks in wonder, exclaiming about how pretty they are, while Young-joon watches her and says to himself, "Yes, very pretty." Miso sniffles again, and Young-joon takes his coat off and gently drapes it around her shoulders. She insists she's fine, but he reminds her softly that she said this is what the man is supposed to do. As he fastens the coat, he looks at her and suddenly freezes mid-sentence, caught off guard. They both stand there, silent and still, caught in a quiet moment, until a loud firework snaps them out of it. On the drive home, Young-joon snuffles as if his nose is running, so Miso hurriedly returns his coat. He tosses it back at her with a rough edge to his voice, saying he's tired of it and she can keep it or throw it out. Despite the gruffness, Miso grins, and Young-joon cracks a small, reluctant smile in response. She thanks him warmly for the fun evening, telling him that he gave her everything she's ever wanted. He responds with a smug, "I know, right?" and Miso wonders why he looks so confident. Then she suddenly remembers the questionnaire she filled out, listing all the things she'd like to do with a boyfriend, and everything clicks into place. Young-joon drops her off at home and heads to the trunk to get a gift he bought for her. Miso recalls writing on the questionnaire that she wanted a huge stuffed animal from a boyfriend, so she asks if that's what's in the trunk. He looks guilty for a moment, then grins and pulls out a massive stuffed cow, named Hard-Working Cow, a pun in honor of all the hard work she puts in. Miso laughs softly, saying she always thought the questionnaire was a little odd, and Young-joon shrugs with a grin, saying he just wanted to make sure he gave her exactly what she wanted. She thanks him sincerely for the effort, and he waves it off casually, saying it's worth it because it's her. Cheerfully, she tells him this won't change her mind, and to his credit, he just shakes his head and murmurs good-naturedly, "I can't get one over on you." She starts to go inside, but Young-joon stops her, saying there's one last thing she wanted. She remembers that besides the stuffed animal, she also said she wanted a romantic kiss in front of her house. He steps closer and leans in slowly, puckering up, and Miso playfully shoves the cow's nose right in his face. It's a kiss. Smooch. Young-joon doesn't move for a moment as Miso hurries inside, then he leans on his car and lets out a rueful laugh. Once Miso is home, she smiles to herself, clearly saving Young-joon's attention more than she wants to admit. Later, Young-joon thinks about Miso saying their fantasy date won't change her mind. He chuckles quietly to himself that the curse of the blockbuster has begun, though Miso remains completely unaware. Miso receives a text from her friend, reminding her of the blind date with the news reporter tomorrow night. She falls asleep snuggled tightly with Hard-Working Cow and dreams of herself as a young child, playing with someone she simply calls Oppa. He says he has to go but softly promises he'll come back to see her again. She promises not to forget his name, but in the end, she does forget. He reminds her that it's Lee, but his voice slowly fades away. Miso wakes up trying to recall Oppa's name, then realizes she's late for work. She asks Hard-Working Cow to guard the house, then notices that he's wearing a little bag. Inside the bag is a box, which holds a pretty necklace. Young-joon barely looks at Miso when he arrives at work, so she follows him into his office to ask about the necklace. Young-joon says he put it there for her, which confuses her because she didn't mention a necklace in her questionnaire, but Young-joon says he always likes to exceed people's expectations. She stares at him, and he preens that he's too cool for her to handle, but she's just looking at his crooked tie. She steps forward to fix it, and the close contact brings back memories of their almost kiss last night. She jumps back like she got a shock and makes an excuse to leave, leaving Young-joon smirking after her. It takes Miso a moment to calm herself, then she takes out the necklace to admire it. Young-joon watches as Miso puts on the necklace and lights up with a happy smile. Newbie Jia overhears Miso talking on the phone to her friend about her blind date tonight, so Miso asks her to keep it a secret. Unfortunately, Sarah also catches wind of the date, and although she promises to keep it quiet too, Miso starts to look worried. Sarah and Jia cackle loudly about Miso's lack of dating experience until she snaps at them to knock it off. There's a company track meet coming up, and Young-joon's office team has been assigned to make sure it goes smoothly. Team leader Jung reminds them all that Young-joon doesn't like to be touched, and the track meet is the one time it's most likely someone may accidentally touch him, so they need to stay vigilant. Jia brings Young-joon's tea today, and he asks why Miso isn't doing it. Jia says that Miso told her to do it from now on, and Young-joon huffs and puffs, ignoring her promise to work hard to be as good as Miso. She accidentally mentions Miso's blind date. He goes to mope in Yoshik's office, upset that Miso would wear the necklace he gave her on a blind date with another man. Yoshik thinks it's natural that she would date a normal man since that's what she wants, but Young-joon argues that she's already been put under the curse of the blockbuster. Miso meets her blind date, whose name is Byung-hyun. He greets her politely, then hurries off to the restaurant with a weird little hop, not even waiting to see if she follows. They both order tonkatsu, breaded pork cutlet, and Byung-hyun cuts Miso's for her. It reminds her of Young-joon cutting her steak last night, momentarily distracting her from her date. Byung-hyun tells Miso that she's very beautiful, and he starts to say that her image is feminine, but someone nearby suddenly exclaims that their food is hot, so he ends up blurting, "Your image is hot." The restaurant is so crowded that when a woman at the neighboring table stands, she accidentally smacks Miso in the face with her bag. Again, Miso is reminded of last night, when Young-joon bought out the whole restaurant so they could have privacy. She shakes herself back to reality and starts to eat, but she accidentally spears a piece of tonkatsu from Byung-hyun's plate. He whines that that's an edge piece, his favorite, with the crispiest breading on it. Miso gives it back, embarrassed and uncomfortable, and recalls how Young-joon went to so much effort to make sure she was comfortable. Young-joon explains the curse of the blockbuster to Yoshik by having him imagine watching a high-budget blockbuster movie, then a B-movie filmed with a limited budget. Yoshik admits that the second movie might feel a little boring. Young-joon says he just took Miso on a blockbuster date, so now she won't be able to date an ordinary man. But Yoshik disagrees, pointing out that Miso is on a blind date right now, and anyway, he likes B-movies. After dinner, Byung-hyun takes Miso for coffee. He tells her there's something on her face, and he reaches out to get it for her, which turns out to be her beauty, and Byung-hyun apologizes for the dumb joke. Yoshik's secretary sees them together, assumes they're in a relationship, and takes pictures before sending them to all her coworkers. Reflexive racquetball tantrum aside, Young-joon claims that he's not at all worried about Miso being on a blind date, since he's got her under his curse. But when his secretary accidentally texts Yoshik the picture of Byung-hyun touching Miso, Young-joon looks on the verge of exploding. Miso still can't stop thinking about Young-joon, so she tells herself to focus on her date. She asks about his job as a news reporter, and when he brags that he's the best at getting information, she asks him to look into an old kidnapping case for her. She says it happened to a friend in late autumn of 1994, in the redevelopment area where Yumyung land is now. He says it will be difficult, but he promises to see what he can find. At the end of their date, Byung-hyun says he'd like to see Miso again. She gets distracted by his crooked tie and automatically steps forward to fix it, then looks up into his eyes. She starts to apologize that she just did that out of habit, but suddenly a voice nearby bellows, "Secretary Kim." It's Young-joon, of course, and Miso nearly grabs Byung-hyun by his tie. She follows Young-joon, who snaps that he's disappointed in her. All business, she asks if she forgot a task or if there's a problem with tomorrow's company track meet. He just glares haughtily, so she asks if it's because she went on a blind date. Young-joon splutters indignantly, but when she says she thought he was angry that she spent the evening on personal matters when there's a big event tomorrow, he grabs onto that excuse like a lifeline. She apologizes, and they stand there awkwardly. A leaf floats down and lodges itself in Young-joon's jacket pocket. Miso tries to stifle a giggle, then reaches to remove the leaf, bringing their faces dangerously close. They freeze for a long moment, Then Miso plucks the leaf free and steps back, looking anywhere but at Young-joon as he tells her to focus on her work until her last day is over. Miso's sister Pilnam intercepts her with chicken and beer just as she's arriving home. Unni is annoyed to hear about Young-joon interrupting Miso's blind date, but Miso takes the blame for dating just before a big company event. She does admit that Young-joon is acting strange lately, one day practically ignoring her, then the next staging an elaborate farewell gift. Pilnam thinks he's gone nuts from the shock of her quitting. Pilnam says that Young-joon's the type who gets everything he wants, so this must be about possessiveness, as if Miso is an object he found useful and comfortable, that suddenly told him it was leaving. Miso objects to the idea of being an object that Young-joon owns, but she has to admit her sister has a point. Pilnam unexpectedly bursts into tears at the thought of Miso working for a guy like Young-joon for 9 years just to help pay for college. She notices Miso's necklace and calls it a dog collar when Miso says Young-joon gave it to her. In the morning, Miso notices Jia reading a book that hasn't been released in Korea yet, which Jia got from a friend in England. They bond over their love for the author, Morpheus, whose books are all bestsellers and made into popular movies. Jia tells Miso that she's a Mor fan, a member of Morpheus fan club. She sighs that Morpheus is also very handsome, but Miso says that he never does interviews or shows himself in public. Jia reveals that his pictures have circulated around his fan club and offers to show Miso. One picture is so blurry that his face just looks like a smudge, and in another, he's wearing a hat so big that only his chin is visible. One fan is on the same flight to Korea as Morpheus, and she messages the fan club the time he's arriving and to look for a man wearing a black hat. At the end of the flight, he catches a passenger's attention and gives her his hat. So when she exits, the Morphans mob her, and Morpheus slips right past them. Morpheus calls his mother to tell her he's in the country, which is when we learn that his real name is Lee Young-joon, and that he's Young-joon's older brother. Mom says she and dad are on vacation in Jeju, but Young-joon tells them not to rush home on his account. He asks how Young-joon is doing, and Mom says he's busy running the company. Young-joon says it sounds like Young-joon is doing well, but his voice takes on a dark, emotionless tone. Jia and Miso are dressed in their track clothes when Young-joon arrives at work the next morning, ready for the track meet. He tells them to focus on winning, and when Jia asks if it's not the participation that matters, Young-joon says, that's what losers say as an excuse. You should rather die than lose. Come in first place no matter what. I told you to stay focused on winning until your last day, remember? Jia pouts that Young-joon is way too intense and glances at Miso for agreement, but Miso has already slipped into victory mode. Suddenly, there's a loud crash from Young-joon's office, and he yells frantically for Miso. Inside, Young-joon is huddled over, gasping for air, his face buried in his hands, and his computer lies broken on the floor. Miso quickly spots the problem and grabs a pair of scissors to cut the cable ties binding the computer's cords together. She slips them into her pocket and tells him that the ties are gone. He demands to know who's responsible. Miso takes the blame for not checking carefully enough, but Young-joon shoots a sharp glare at Jia. Without another word, he leaves, and Miso turns on Jia, confronting her about the careless mistake. Jia complains that Young-joon overreacted, but Miso coldly rebukes her for shifting the blame onto him. She reminds Jia that everyone has fears, like her own spider phobia, and tells her to stop whining. Then, she adds that if Jia is truly sorry, she'll lend Miso her copy of Morpheus' new book. Jia looks confused, but Miso just smiles knowingly. Miso brings Young-joon some tea to calm his nerves. She promises to ensure nothing like this happens again, but he sighs, reminding her that she can't guarantee that because she's leaving. He looks at her with the saddest eyes, and Miso thinks maybe his behavior isn't possessiveness after all, he might really need me. Young-joon recovers in time for the track meet. Miso warms up for the obstacle race, while Sarah glares at her from the next lane, clearly giving her the stink eye. The race starts, and Miso quickly pulls ahead, leaving Sarah to amuse the audience with her bumbling attempts. Miso wins, and Young-joon smiles down at her with quiet pride. Yoshik asks if he likes her, and Young-joon denies it, though Yoshik doesn't look convinced. Miso is soon approached by a fellow employee, JW who introduces himself as her three-legged race partner. Young-joon flies into a jealous fit and bites his own hand. Sarah tells Miso that JW is the company's most popular bachelor, but also a workaholic who doesn't take interest in women. Jia chirps that it looks like he's fallen for Miso, but Miso insists they're just race partners. Sarah tries to switch places with her, but Miso simply walks off. Now aware of JW popularity, Miso notices the way female employees flock around him. She thinks to herself that he's not as handsome as, then stops abruptly, shaking herself back to reality. Yoshik fans Young-joon's jealousy by telling him that 80% of three-legged race partners end up dating. Young-joon watches the race like his entire future depends on it, and when the partners lock arms to run, he nearly hyperventilates. By the time Miso and JW win and the crowd starts chanting, "Date! Date! Date!" Young-joon is visibly shaking. He stands abruptly and declares there will be no more company track meets. In his dramatic exit, he trips and twists his ankle, and Miso quickly takes charge to check his injury. She scolds him for falling on the stairs and insists on taking him to the doctor. When he protests, unable to walk without help, she overrides him. Yoshik, ever the matchmaker, holds back Young-joon's assistant from accompanying them. Later, at Young-joon's house, Miso tells him to take off his socks so she can ice his ankle. He protests, saying to do it over the sock, but she grabs and yanks it down, revealing a horrific scar encircling his ankle. Young-joon hastily covers the scar and tells the shocked Miso to continue. She does, silently wondering what could have caused such a deep scar. Seeing her upset, Young-joon distracts her by asking if she had fun at the track meet, especially the three-legged race. She shrugs it off, saying it was no big deal, she just ran like crazy. He gripes at her for acting crazy at such an important event. She reminds him sharply that he was the one who told her to win or die, and he accuses her of taking him too literally. He snarks that she'll even run snuggled up to a strange man if it means winning, and she snaps back that it's better than being a loser. Young-joon yanks his foot away abruptly and scoots closer, his voice low as he asks, "Are you still okay if the person is this close?" Then, without warning, he straddles her and leans in, his breath warm against her face. What if they're this close? Miso's expression tightens for a moment, tension flickering in her eyes, but she quickly steadies herself and says, "It doesn't affect me." Young-joon grabs her arm firmly, pulls back just enough to fall onto the couch, and with a sly grin, tugs her down on top of him. His voice drops to a teasing whisper, "How about this?